alcoholic. And I'd like to take a second moment of silence to say a little prayer to my higher power. Ask my higher power to decrease me so he can increase, and allow me to speak the truth about my desperation and also the truth about his grace. I ask these things in my precious son's name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. My name's Tony. I'm an alcoholic again. My story is no different than anybody else's in the room if they're alcoholic. Desperation. They met desperation, and some point through the desperation, grace followed. A little bit about my childhood. I come from a family of 12 siblings. There's 12 of us. All of us still living. Mom and dad still living. I say that every chance I get. I shout it from the rooftops because that's something to be very thankful for. We live in a little small town called Vandale, Arkansas. It's where I was raised all my life. Farmers, cotton. I hated it. As a kid, I did the best I could to tear up the tractors. I did the best I could to cut off the stalk of the cotton, whatever it took. So my dad would whoop my butt and send me out the field. And most of the time he did. And I was thankful for that. And you know what? I learned that trait, and when I got older, I did the same thing with my mom. I mean, I got out of washing dishes. I got out of carrying out the trash. I'd always grab the trash bag by the bottom side, and all the trash would go on the floor. And I mean, it was funny. That's just the way I was. I always took the short, easier, softer way. I was introduced. I mean, when you grow up in a big family, you got uncles and you got nephews and you got all these people, and they're all drinking, and you're trying to find out who you are, whether you're going to be a fireman when you grow up or be a police officer. That's what I was trying to learn, while everybody else was drinking around me. And I remember sneaking sips of beer and stuff early, 8, 9, 10 years old, and getting a fuzzy feeling. But I didn't like it. I didn't like the taste back then. I mean, I just did it because it was there and it was new and I could get away with it. See, I like getting away with things. For some reason, I liked it. Long about 14, things changed. The beer started. I guess what changed at 14, the crowd of people that I was hanging around with. I started venturing out around people my age, that peer pressure, wanting to be liked. Because for some reason, I always felt, even though I come from a big loving family, something was missing all along. Something was missing, and I didn't know what it was. I just knew that all these six brothers, and at the time, these 2 sisters, there's just something ain't right. Something doesn't fit in this family. And that's what I knew at 14. And at 16, I found out what it was. My drinking went from 14 to 16 as having fun. You rode around in the country. If you ever grew up in the country, you knew when you're riding around in the truck drinking and you're on the gravel road, you're going fast, you make sure you hit the high side of that gravel road so you don't fishtail and run off in the ditch. So I got good at driving the gravel roads fast and drinking and hitting the signs with the beer bottles and all that. I had to work. Still didn't like farming. My dad, he decided to put me with a farmhand that we had. His name was Bracy Jones. He was the first person that I really saw that was a full-blown alcoholic. 9 o'clock in the morning, he's drinking. 10 o'clock in the morning, he's drunk, passed out, hanging off the door. I remember one day, he said, "You're going to learn how to drive this tandem bob truck this day." And I said, "Really?" "Sure, I'm ready." And this little town of Wynn, we're going through the town, and I'm driving this tandem bob truck. He's hanging on the driver's door of the truck, the passenger door of the truck, passed out. Every time I would see somebody in town that I knew, I would hit the air horn of that big truck and wave real big. And every time I hit that air horn, it would scare the daylights out of him. He'd jump up and say, "Boy, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm waving at so-and-so." And we're driving them through the town, and all of a sudden, I saw this man. I called him Mr. Herman Graham. That's what everybody called him. It was a man that was a friend of my family, friend with my mom, friend with my dad. He was always at all my football games. I never knew why. I just thought he was a friend of my family. Well, I hit that air horn and scared the daylights out of. Did I turn this off? Scared the daylights out of Bracy, and he come up off the door of that truck again. He looked at me and he said, "Boy, pull this truck over. I told you if you hit that air horn again, I was going to make you stop drinking." And I'm being a 16-year-old kid, I'm begging and pleading. I said, "Mr. Bracy Jones, please, 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 don't make me stop. I won't do it no more. I won't honk no more." He looked at me, looked over the dash of the truck. Mr. Herman Graham, he pulled over up the road because he heard Bracy hollering and screaming at me. And he come back to the truck. And Bracy looked over the truck again, looked at me and took his hat off his head. And he said, "Boy, when are you going to start calling that man daddy?" So here I am, 16 years old, and I found out the man that always came to my football games, always hung out with my mom, always hung out around my dad, and was police chief of Wynn, Arkansas. Now he's my dad. So a light clicked on in my head. And I said, that's the reason my dad always whooped my butt. That's the reason I always got second hand and passed down. That's the reason he always took my other brothers hunting and made an excuse like not to take me. And at that time, something shut off in me. And I don't know, something shut off. And at that time, I knew God. We come from actually my mom owns her own church. It sits right across the gravel road from our house. It's called Mount Table Baptist Church. But at that point, I was mad at God. I was mad at my entire family. I'm like, at 16, you couldn't tell me this at 16? Surely I'm mature enough to handle this at 16. They didn't tell me. So I done the best I could to deal with that. 3 weeks later, or maybe it's 2.5 weeks later, a best friend of mine, his name's Barry Futrell. During those days, Barry didn't know if he was gay or not, but all his friends, we all knew he was. And I was this popular guy that everybody come to because I had the Camaro and the truck, and I had the good pot that they smoke. So I told Barry, I said, after school, you come get in my Camaro and we'll ride around and we'll talk about this. There I am trying to be a psychiatrist at 16 and tell people what to do because I know best at 16. And I didn't know best that day because I gave Barry some advice that I thought was advice, and he didn't take it as advice. He went home. On 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, back in the 80s, we all had those sitcoms we watched. Beverly Hillbillies, Big Valley, Jeffersons, and all that stuff. Well, while Barry's family was watching that, he came in the house, didn't say nothing to anybody, walked through the house, went to his bedroom, shut the door, took a 410 shotgun, put to his chin, blew his head off. That's the second thing that happened to me when I was 16. Found out my dad wasn't my dad, then Barry blew his head off. Third thing that happened to me, 2 days later after Barry killed himself, my girlfriend, and I'm telling you all this to qualify to what happened down the road. 2 days later, my girlfriend came to me. I got to school. I'm hanging out in my locker. She come up to me. She said, "Tony, I got something to tell you." I said, "What is it, Rachel?" She said, "We might ought to move over here. I need to tell you in private." She said, "I got to break up with you." I said, "What do you mean break up with me, Rachel?" She said, "I got to break up with you. We can't be together anymore." And I said, "Why, Rachel?" And she said, "Because I'm pregnant with your brother's baby." They've been married 39 years. They have 3 kids. One's a dentist. One's an agri financial agent. And the other one is a hospice nurse. I checked out after that. I was a very athletic, very awesome football player. Bobby Trout and Lou Holtz came to see me in '84 and in '85 at my school to recruit me for the University of Arkansas. I walked out of school, stole my brother's driver's license, drove my Camaro after stealing a check from my grandmother, stole my brother's driver's license, and drove to Memphis to the airport and got on the plane and went to Washington, D.C. And I said, I'm going to reinvent myself. Never again will anybody hurt me. I'm going to have the people around me that love me and care about me. When I got to Washington, D.C., I found crack cocaine along with a lot of more booze. And I was lost from last of 85 until they found me in Charlotte, North Carolina in 92, shot through the brain, paralyzed from the neck down. And now, I'll tell you, all through those years, my alcohol and drugs spiraled out of hand. I hated God. I blamed everything in my life on God. God caused this, God did this, and I just kept on burying myself in alcohol, burying myself in self-pity, trying to get a family to love that could love me, that could do what I want. I have 3 older kids from the same mother. They're all in Georgia. Got them all through college by the grace of God, and none of them are alcoholics yet. What I can tell you is I thought somewhere along the way that I was going to be able to fix myself with myself. I just knew someday that things was going to get better. Forget about my family. I'm going to be able to get a hold on this drinking. I'm going to be able to get a hold on it. It just kept getting worse. And I remember the first time I got to back up. The first time I asked God back into my life and asked God to help me with my alcoholism. You know, he's got a funny sense of humor. How he helped me, I got shot October 13th of 92. That's how God helped me the first time when I asked him to. And you know what? I call it brown knuckle because I don't have white knuckles. I brown knuckled it for, 10 years, 11 years, staying sober just because I was going to meetings, just because still mad at God, still had a resentment at God, still had a resentment against my family, just going to meetings. And one day, nothing was going wrong. Everything was still fine. It was getting close to the end of the 90s. It was fixing to be the whack, whatever the deal, 2000's coming in. And I said, well, I might as well get drunk because all the computers and everything's going to shut down. I might as well get drunk. And that's what I did. And see, I'm one of those alcoholics that when I drink, I lose decades. I'm not one that take a drink, take a sip, oh, I'm sorry, and come back in the rooms. And no offense to you guys that can do that. I'm just not one that can do that. I lose decades. And normally it takes an act of something greater than myself to stop me. The second time, after doing what I always do, it was so easy to stop drinking long enough to get everything back, or to stop drinking long enough for my family to start back giving me money, even though I hated them. I still hated them. I mean, I just did. I just could not get past it. I'm 16, but now I'm 25, living in a 16-year-old hurt. And I remember coming back to God again and asking God to please help me. I can't do this on my own. At this time, I got 2 little kids, and I need help. I don't want my kids to keep seeing me this way. He helped me this second time by putting me in prison. That sense of humor, that higher power of mine got. God, don't you love him? I do. So second time was prison. And I spent 14 months the first time, came out, went through a drug and alcohol treatment center, came out and walked the rest of my paper down back in the rooms of Alcohol Anonymous. That's when I met my family here in Arkansas, because I moved from Missouri to Jonesboro. I started going to the meetings here in Arkansas, and I found something with the group, the Jonesboro group, the Shed, and the other AA group, the Serenity group, that I found love. I found unconditional love. These people, I walked in, tell you how funny it was. I walked in the room the first day, and it was a room full of people. I'm talking a room full of people, and none of them looked like me. But they all said, keep coming back. They come up and gave me hugs. They told me, this too shall pass. Just don't give up before the mirror. I mean, so much stuff. And then some of them had enough love in them to ask me to ride along with them, to do stuff with them, because they knew I was an animal. When I got back, when I got to Jonesboro in 2003, I was like an animal. I had been locked up. I had been let down by God, family, and I'm holding all that. And this group of people loved me. They brought me in and loved me. And one, God rest his soul, Bud D, he helped me enlarge my higher power. He took time out with me. God knows. He used to scare the daylights out of me, because we'd go for rides after the meeting. He had this old King Ranch truck, and it had a saddlebag in the center console of it. And we'd ride, and I'd hold that saddlebag deal, and I'd hold the old S-bar too at the same time, because Bud could not drive. I mean, he could not drive, but he had a way with him, a calm way of taking the wildness out of me and putting in compassion and love. And I didn't even know he was doing it. And he said, we're gonna quit 13 stepping it, and you're gonna get off of step 0. And all those things. And we'd ride around, and he would just tell me stories, and he would tell me that you just got to enlarge your higher power. He's right there waiting on you. All you got to do is just nourish him every day. And I didn't know anything what he was talking about. I wanted to ask him, how do I do it? But I didn't. I just sat there. And years went by. I went back out, came back again. When I came back the last time, Bud had gone. He was gone. But I had a lot of other people that had experienced the love from Bud also, that jumped in there and tucked me under their wing again. People that tucked me for rides and showed me love, because that's all I ever wanted. It's all I ever needed. I needed the truth and I needed love. And boy, when I drank, if it wasn't the truth, I perceived it as the truth, and I was okay for years drinking. I remember when it quit being fun and started being a job. When it quit being fun and started being a chore. It was a chore. God, do I drink or do I blow my brains out of my head today? God, please, what do I do? I don't want to drink, but I can't not drink. I mean, going through that for years. Then, July 9th of 18, I hit another place in my life. I tapped out. I don't know if it was health or I got too old or what it was, but I went to God again. I said, oh, faithful God, will you please help me again? I can't do this. I need help. And he helped me this time by giving me a helicopter ride. Oh, you know, it's fun to get a helicopter ride. But I didn't want the stroke that come along with it and the 27 seizures. But I got a helicopter ride to the med. And thank God for all those desperations. Thank God for all those times that God answered when I didn't deserve him to. And you know, I used to get mad when I'd get pulled over for a DUI and I'd see those blue lights in my rear and I'd go to beat the steering wheel. Why is he profiling me? Why are they picking on me? Here they go again. But you know what? The Jonesboro group and the program of Alcohol Anonymous and the steps, you know what they taught me? They taught me that desperation was grace. And it was amazing how all those years of utter bitter desperation I went through, when I got still and when I trusted my higher power and when I trusted that the people in the rooms of Alcohol Anonymous was telling the truth about their alcoholism, is when I found grace. And once I found grace, it was like, yeah, man, that's why I didn't die. That's why he left me here. He left me here so I could be an example for the newcomer. So I could have a story to tell someone else. And I'm gonna tell you, and a lot of the people in here know, this chair is not attractive. I don't look good in it, but I'm grateful for it. I am grateful for it. I'm grateful for everything God left me with after the alcohol. And I couldn't have ever got grateful for it if it wasn't for the people like you guys telling me your stories and showing me that I wasn't unique, that I didn't get a bad deal. I got grace. I didn't get a bad deal. I didn't lose out on nothing by going to prison or by getting shot. I gained something. I gained an opportunity to be in the rooms of Alcohol Anonymous. I gained the opportunity to learn how to love again. I gained the opportunity to have compassion for another human being. Am I perfect? No. Do I still make mistakes? Yes. Do I still pick the phone up and call one of my brothers in the room and say, "Hey, I think I'm fit to make a bad decision. I might not need to do this. Maybe I need to run this by you." And you know what? I got about 6 or 7 guys in this room right here, right now, tonight, that I can call at any time, and they'll tell me the truth, and it'll be from a place of love. I never got that. I walked away from my perception of love with my family in 1986. I walked away from a perception of love, and I found the true meaning of love in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I found God in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was able to forgive God in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I remember my sponsor was working the steps. My first sponsor, I had to fire my first sponsor, but he asked me one day, he said, do you know what a resentment is? And I said, won't you tell me? He said it's reoccurring anger. And when he said that, a light bulb came on in my head. I've been having that all my life. I was born with reoccurring anger. I mean, shoot. Does everybody get that? I mean, that's what I mean, because it was true. I finally, and once a good friend of mine, his name is Billy B, and he don't mind, I'm sure he don't mind me mentioning his name. He said the answers are in the books. The questions are in the answers are in the book. Read the book to find the answers. Work the steps to learn about yourself. And once I did all that, it opened up all my answers. All my answers. I was no longer mad at every time the police stopped me. I was grateful because by them stopping me, they stopped me from drinking for a moment to get sane again. I got a chance to understand that maybe my parents were doing the best they could with what they had to deal with, and I had to forgive them. But in order to forgive them, I had to talk to them. See, I was that person that I would climb a mountain to avoid controversy or to avoid having to deal with something tough. But talking to my mom about why this man here, my dad, and my dad's not my dad, was a very hard conversation. But today, through the program and through the steps, I called my mom before I come here tonight. I called my sister to pray before I come here. I called my brothers to ask them if they wanted to come. And they said, "No, we don't want to come. We already know your story. We don't want to come. We don't need the reminder." and it's true. They don't need the reminder. Go tell them people up there that might get something out of it. We don't. But you know what? I say that in joking. My family, it's a loving family. I would not trade my family today, knowing the truth and having a sober mind, for nothing in the world. I wouldn't trade them for nothing in the world. But I can remember for many years driving from Jonesboro down to Vandale to our shop when we would have a crawfish or a fish fry with my pistol laying in the seat of my truck, and already done made my mind up that I was going to kill everybody and shoot myself. And somehow God always changed it around, and I ended up driving back to Jonesboro, pistol still laying in the seat of the truck, and everybody's still alive. Don't know how that happened. Because I seriously was that sick. Still drinking, and every time I drank, all my thoughts became real. Yeah, that's right. They were very convincing. When I drank, my thoughts became convincing. Yeah, I can drive to the liquor store at 3 o'clock at 2 o'clock in the morning, knowing the liquor store closed, but there's a bootlegger open somewhere. I mean, that was me once I started drinking. And still to this day, I have a healthy fear of alcohol, where before I didn't. I have a love of a higher power that I cussed and said I hated for years. I'm grateful. We'll be in a meeting and nobody has a topic. I'll scream out gratitude. I'm ready. Let's do it. Because for a long time, a proud alpha man like myself, I had to search for gratitude in order to live. It was either find something a reason not to blow my brains out of my head, a reason not to lose myself in another bottle. Because it took me this last time 7.5 years. No, 8 years to get 3.5 years. I could get 30 days. I could get 60 days, but I couldn't. I mean, I kept picking up. I got to the point where I quit picking up white chips. I started bringing them back, throwing them in the thing. I quit picking them up. Every time I'd come back to the room, I'd put one back. I mean, I figured y'all needed them. I mean, only thing I can tell you, program Alcoholics Anonymous saved my life, and it gave me a life. It gave me a family. It gave me a multiple. I mean, look, God, y'all some beautiful. I didn't know white people was this beautiful. I did not know. Thank you, y'all. But I'm serious. Y'all gave me a family that I love, and what's so awesome about it? When I say I love you, y'all, you know it. You know it. And like I say, I make mistakes. I make mistakes. But one thing about today making mistakes, I know they're mistakes. And there's something alive inside of me that the program of Alcoholics Anonymous gave me that lets me know that it ain't right and it's wrong. I didn't have that when I was opening that fifth of whiskey and throwing the cap out the window. Why would anybody throw a cap out the window on a fresh bottle? Because I was going to drink it all. I didn't need the cap. Cap was just something else, something I might get caught with. That's a white cap. That came off a Jim Beam bottle. You've been drinking. No, I haven't. It's in the ditch. I mean, I love each and every one of you in here. I never know what I'm going to say when I come up here or when I tell my story, and I tell my story every time somebody asks me to. But what I do know, that it comes from a place of my higher power, who I choose to call Jesus Christ, and it comes from a place of love. It comes from a place of coming from utter desperation and finding grace through the eyes of you guys and y'all's story. Because see, when I first got here, I thought I was the only one like me. I was the only one with the raw deal, shot, paralyzed, got to walk with sticks, got this old stupid chair. I thought I had an attitude of indifference. And when you go on with that attitude of indifference, it's towards spiritual principles. I couldn't get right with God. And once I got right with God, I was able to get right with you guys in the program. I was able to accept the program. I'm an extrovert. Normally, I could sit here and talk all night long, and a couple of people that know me is like, oh God, Tony giving this story. Oh man, am I gonna make it home tonight? see Gary looking around, but I love you guys, and I love the program of Alcohol Anonymous, and you guys each and every day give me hope, and my life would be nothing without you guys. So I'm glad to be here, able to tell you guys that Alcohol Anonymous work, and after desperation, there is grace. That's all I got.